Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here. We are talking about what happened in SEC hoops on Tuesday night. And first of all, Blake, we have done a bracketology yesterday. We'll be doing another one, I think, on Friday. And you called it last night. You thought that Kansas could lose at TCU, which it did. And I think that has made Auburn and Kansas on that one seed line almost a toss-up at this point. It really just is. The computers have them dead even. It's just a matter of which you prefer. Kansas now has 6 losses, but a tougher schedule. Auburn has 4 losses, and so you kind of called that. And I think if you were Auburn, even though you didn't play last night, it was a good night for you.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think TCU's a pretty good team for what could wind up being an 8 or 9 seed. That's another team I would want no part of probably in that scenario if I'm a 1, because now they've beaten Texas Tech and Kansas back to back. So, I mean, it makes it a lot more interesting. Certainly, it's all dependent on what Arkansas does tonight against Mississippi State. If they lose that one, I think the conversation's obviously irrelevant, and I think they ultimately wind up as a 2. But you never know. I mean, like we said, I mean, now who does Kansas play next, right? They play TCU again. So that's one of those just kind of, back-to-backs that you're going to have just based on scheduling. And so now these two teams will play again on Thursday, and who knows? Auburn wins tonight. Kansas loses again on Thursday, which I think will be a hard task for TCU to beat them in back-to-back games. But as we always say, sometimes a team can just have your number, and we'll see if that's the case. But yeah, it makes it more interesting with those two in particular. We thought, all right, could Arizona possibly go to USC and lose? That didn't happen. Dominant win for Arizona, so they're sitting in a pretty good spot. So Gonzaga, Baylor, Arizona, I think they're all number 1 seeds right now without question. And then beyond that, that's where things get interesting.
Okay, 4 games last night. We didn't think it was going to be the most interesting of slates, which I think for the most part it wasn't. One game we did think would be interesting, would have some potential ramifications. That was Florida and Vandy. And full disclosure, my anniversary was yesterday. Went out to dinner with my wife, and so all I got to see was most of Vandy, Florida. But that was a really good one, Blake. I think it was everything we thought it would be. It was close down to the wire. I think we both thought Florida would win. And the Gators, with a little helping hand from Vanderbilt in terms of poor execution, pulled that one out.
I mean, they had to win. I told you what I thought. So I was giving them the adios yesterday if they didn't win this one, and they won it. And so it doesn't matter how you win them; just matters that you win them. And I think there are several other teams would say the same thing. Tennessee, one of those, with the game at Georgia, and even Kentucky at times against Ole Miss. But I mean, yeah, it's just how do you win? And that's one that they had to win, and they found a way. And unfortunately for Vanderbilt, they found all the ways to lose it. They're up. I don't even remember what the number was.
I think they were up 8 with 3 to play, and then started to try to take the air out of the ball a little bit and run some clock, and that's where it started to go wrong.
They were up 8 with 3:50 to go, and then let's see. Yeah, I mean, you're up 5 with 44 seconds left. That's the bigger number there, I think. And yet you still find a way to lose and give up 9 points in 44 seconds. So just, I don't even know what you say at this point about Vanderbilt. We've talked about it. It's just a team that I think, a couple plays here or there, it's just a completely different conversation. And sure, you can make the point if they were at full strength. We know things would have been different somewhat, but you just, you can't make those kind of plays that they made in that game last night. And I think for Florida, it is. I mean, it's give them credit because you're down 5 with 44 seconds left, and you're looking at your season potentially being on the line there. And I mean, they made plays, and that's what you got to do in terms of if you're a team on the bubble and knowing that all you can do is control what you can do. You can't control everyone else on the bubble. And I think for Florida, give them credit. I know Vanderbilt made some mistakes, but give Florida credit. They're the ones that won the game. And I mean, it's just, you had to have it in my opinion. I still think had they lost this one, I know beating Kentucky would have been a significant boost, but I don't know. I think if they lose this one, I don't know if they beat Kentucky just in terms of the mindset and those kind of things. So now it sets up for just easily the biggest game of the year for Florida on Saturday against Kentucky. And I don't want to say everything's on the line for Florida at this point, but because even if they don't beat Kentucky, they can still work their
Yeah.
way in the SEC tournament. So it's not like it's, again, a bad loss to Kentucky is not a loss to Vanderbilt. I mean, it's just different. So yeah, they had to have this one, in my opinion. Again, I know some people may disagree on that, but I thought they absolutely had to have it, and I didn't think they were going to get it, but they did.
Well, I thought that the Kentucky game was more important for Florida than this one, but this did move Florida up a little bit in the computer metrics, brought them much closer to some of the teams on the bubble they'll compete with. In fact, I think the computers had them right there on the bubble, about as bubblicious as you can get. But a couple things on Florida's end. They played without Anthony DeRuggi. What's the injury there? I don't remember.
I'm not good with keeping up with injuries in
Well,
terms
he
of
was hurt
the
and he didn't
specifics
play.
of the
Yeah.
injury. Yeah.
And he was probably, I'm going to say he was probably their second best player the first 15 games or so of the season behind Castleton. But I kind of pointed out that Florida, you'd seen some other guys. We know about Castleton. He's been there almost every night for them, just has been rock solid. But Myron Jones has been hit and miss. Sometimes you have 20 points, sometimes you get 0. Appleby has been really consistent. Wasn't quite as good as he's been last night. And Flanders Fleming, who had 27 in Athens, follows up with 16 and one of the 2 or 3 biggest shots probably of Florida's season when he hits that 3 late in the game to get, I can't remember, I guess that tied it. But in any case, I mean, it was huge. It was an open 3. It was a kick out from Castleton. But I thought those are the 4 guys that Florida needs to play well to get to be what Florida can be, whatever that may be. And I thought they all did.
Yeah, I think the Fleming 3, that was the one that put him up 2, right?
That's
Or is
right.
that
That's
right?
right. That was
Yeah.
the last points of the game other than the Castleton free throws.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think, yeah.
DeRuggi has an ankle injury. That's right. I don't, like I said, I can keep up with injuries. I can't keep up with the body parts of the injuries. That's, I always get those mixed up sometimes between
Come on,
players.
that's your
So
job, man. Your
I
job
know.
from now on is keeping up with body parts.
Well, I know. And it's like, I hesitate because sometimes, like, wait a second. Is he the one with the, ankle injury, the leg injury, the back injury? Like, it's just,
It's like a game of injury clue.
I don't want to, attribute the wrong injury to the wrong player. So I want to make sure I get that right. But yes, he has been injured. We do know that. No, I mean we've talked about it before with this team. I've said it, and I know we've had that discussion back and forth at times about they got to get more consistency outside of Castleton and Appleby. And when you have Jones and Fleming playing like that, that's when Florida is good enough to look like an NCAA tournament team. And I think there were, stretches last night in that game where they looked like an NCAA tournament team. There were other stretches where they didn't, but they need that type of balance, and we've said that before with them. And hey, I'll say this too. I've hammered it home as much as anyone over the past week now, but it's not easy winning on the road, no matter who it's against. And now for Florida, they go get the win at Georgia, which I said, you just never know. They win that one on the road. Now they come back and win at Vanderbilt. So, I mean, even looking back at like some of those games where, they lose at Kentucky and A&M and those games like that, but even finding a way to beat Missouri, in that game several weeks ago, that looks even bigger now because it's like they were done there in that one too, right? Like we
Yeah.
thought Missouri had the lead with whatever left, and it looked like Florida was done, but they managed to find a way to win that game in the final seconds, and then they do that here against Vanderbilt. So those are the kind of wins you have to look back on because if you do get in, you look back on and say, well, yes, our big wins helped us, but man, just making those plays in the final seconds of games like that against Missouri and Vanderbilt, and certainly the Auburn one too. The home game against Auburn. That's for specifically talking about on the road for the other ones, but winning that game against Auburn the way they did, even the Ole Miss game. That's one that goes to overtime, and you make your plays in the final stretch there to win that one. So these are the games you look back on. We talked about the negatives yesterday with the Texas Southern loss and all that, but these are the positives you look at and say, man, at least our guys, if you're Mike White, they find a way to win these games, and it could ultimately be what kind of catapults them into the NCAA tournament.
That wasn't one of the games we circled as as a must watch. It was the best of the lot last night, but I'm thinking back on it after a night's sleep. That was a really good game, Blake. I mean, you had the drama, you had the improbable comeback, you had Scottie Pippen, who I'll get to in a minute. But these teams combined to shoot 25 of 50 on three-pointers. I don't know that we've had a game in the league like that this year.
Yeah, it was. I think we talked about Florida too. I have to look back at their numbers, but I feel like we've had this conversation recently about Florida. Yeah, because it was the Georgia game where they hit 14.
Well, and
and they hit 10
Vandy
against
goes
Auburn.
15 of 29 from three and loses the game. That's
Right,
crazy.
I was just going to say, like, I
Yeah.
think that's been our conversation on Florida, is that they have seemingly shot the ball a lot better from outside in some of these games recently, and they've started to hit more. And I don't know if we really expected that from this particular team, but they have. I mean, they've started to make outside shots, and that makes things easier. And then with Vanderbilt to make 15 and lose, that's. But look, let's be honest. I mean, we can say it again. They had no business losing this game. I mean, they're up. Like I said, they're up 5 with 44 seconds left. They're up, like you mentioned, 8 with 3.5 or something to go, and they made the wrong plays. Florida made the right plays. Vandy made the wrong plays, and that's why they kind of are where they are, because we've seen that this season where they've just put themselves in a position to win some of these games. You look at the Alabama one. That's another one that kind of stands out. I mean, the South Carolina one, go all the way back to January. That was another one that felt like they were at least in a position to win. And yeah, they can't find a way to get over that hump in terms of making those plays sometimes in those kind of games. And I know they've done it in some of them, but I mean, the Arkansas win on the road is one in particular. But as we've said, that's just a completely different scenario at this point, where in terms of where both teams were then. But it's got to be frustrating. I mean, yeah, what else do you say? I mean, we've talked about the frustration for Vanderbilt fans, and this was another one that got away.
The guy I felt badly for last night was Scottie Pippen Jr. Just was so good. He gets 26 points, 5 assists, 3 turnovers, 3 steals, 11 of 18 from the field, hits 5 threes. And you're thinking, if you're Vandy, that last possession, they've got the ball with 6 seconds left. They get him the ball. He brings it into front court. And I don't know that Florida wanted to foul him, but there were worse alternatives. He could have hit a 3 and won the game then and there. But he looked like he was going to the hole, and he got checked by, I can't remember if it was McKissick or who it was, but goes to the line with 2.4 left. And Pippen's not been the free throw shooter this year that he has been in previous years, but he's still 74%.
Like
I'm thinking,
72%.
yeah, I mean, and if you do the math on that, your odds of hitting both are a little better than 50-50, which is probably a little better than whatever the chances you're going to field goal. So the point is, you take your shot with your best player at the line down 2 with 2 unguarded shots, and he just back rims the first one, and they end up losing the game in a 1-1. But yeah, I mean, that kid is just, Blake, I'm not sure the last month anybody in the league has played a lot better than he has.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we always say sometimes, it's when they've got more help around him this year, but he's still the guy everything goes through. And I mean, he's still on the floor 30 plus minutes a game, and it's just hard to take him off the floor. And, free throws, he's not the first guy to miss a free throw in that scenario. And, I don't think I saw this, but it's Twitter and you never know. But like, if anyone once said, well, he lost us the game because of this.
No,
you're not even
he's
in
the
the
only reason you're in
You're
the game.
not even in the game.
I mean,
it's the only reason
he
you've been in.
Yeah, Trey
the
Thomas
majority of the
hits
games you played in,
5
so.
threes, which is an out. I mean, Trey Thomas does that. Like, Trey Thomas is the most, for 10 games he gives you nothing, then he pops up and hits 3 about once every 10 games, and he did that last night.
Look, I just think it goes back to this. It's Rodney Chapman to me, and we can play the what-if game all we want, but I just think this team is so much different in those kind of scenarios specifically, and maybe I'm wrong on that because you do have Pippen, who's one of the top 5-6 players in the league. But I still think having someone like that who can alleviate some of that pressure off of him, even in those kind of scenarios, where it's a late game and you got to get the ball in bounds and those kind of things, those are the kind of things to me that add up over time in terms of just having him on the floor more. Um, and I still look at this team. You can point out, well, there's a missing piece here, and they could have used that, but to me, he's the missing piece. In games like this specifically,
Yeah, that's
because I
true.
think they probably find a way. In all honesty, they probably find a way to beat Alabama, and I think they probably find a way to beat Florida if he's on the floor. And maybe that's, overestimating it, but I don't think so. I think it's just having another guy like that. And that's not to take away from any of the other guys that are on the floor for Vanderbilt, but having another guy like that who's experienced, who we've already seen, when he steps on the floor, he can be a game changer. I just think that's I think what we'll look back on and say. And I know Vanderbilt fans are frustrated with the injuries and saying, well, we can't use that as a basis for determining the future of our program and all this. And I get it, but I also think you have to be realistic and know that it is one where you can't ignore the fact that I think if he's out there in those kind of scenarios, it makes things a lot easier on Pippen. And yeah, but Florida won and Vanderbilt lost, and now we'll see. Maybe Vanderbilt can put something together in the SEC tournament, but all depends on the draw. So
Okay, Ole Miss goes to Kentucky, puts up a pretty good effort. Kentucky wins at 183-72. Again, I didn't see any of this. I'm looking at the box score. They got a great game out of Matt Morrell. So mostly healthy Ole Miss against looks like a fully healthy Kentucky, or at least all their guys played. I again didn't see it. What did you take away from this?
yeah, I mean, look, we said going in, and I don't remember what we talked about with the game in terms of how it could play out, but I said, Kermit Davis he's the type of coach that he's gonna find a way to aggravate you at some point, in terms of how they play defense and those kind of things. And they're not going to make it easy on many teams. And I know, yeah, sure, they've gotten, blown out at times this season, but we've documented the reasons why due to their, injury situation and all that. But they're still a team that's not gonna. It's not fun to play Ole Miss. I think that's the best way to put it because he is
Yeah,
a really good coach, I think, and he understands, like I said, the defensive aspect of it and what you can at least try to do to slow down a team like Kentucky. But as we know, that's way easier said than done. And Kentucky shoots 66% from two, and that was my takeaway was Kentucky's like they're back, everyone is on the floor now. And I mean, look at the that's what we say. Like it's just you got seven guys here who score between 7 and 18 points, right? Like it's one of those things where these guys they have got so many different options, and I keep looking at this team, and I think defensively, there are probably some things in that game that John Calipari probably wants to look back at and say we need to get better there. And he could point that out in multiple games probably recently, and that's something I think that they'll certainly work on here moving forward is maybe try to do a couple things differently defensively, try to guard a bit better, protecting the rim in terms of the dribble penetration, those kind of things, but still, I mean, when this team is playing at its best, there's a reason why everyone keeps talking about them as a national championship type contender is because they are that good when everyone's on the floor. And I just think this was another one. Oscar Sheboy, another double-double. I think you have to go back to January 19th against A&M for the last time. I made the joke on Twitter. Maybe MLB fans weren't too happy about it, but I said the last time that Oscar Sheboy did not have a or did not have a double double. I said milk was 5 cents a gallon. People communicated through AOL Instant Messenger, and MLB actually played baseball games.
Oh,
So,
by the way, you called.
sorry,
I said better odds on this thing getting
sorry.
settled or Florida. Or what I gave you choices. What I
It
gave
was
you three
Mississippi State,
things.
Florida, and MLB. The better chance of I don't know. I don't remember what the scenarios were, but I said
Making the
put MLB
tournament
at
with
the
those
bottom.
two. Yeah,
Put MLB
I
at the
think you took
bottom,
Florida.
and yeah, I said Florida, and then I said Mississippi State would be second in that group, them making the tournament, and then third would be baseball season starting on time. So, yeah, there's another discussion in terms of power ranking your optimism in professional sports entities. Major League Baseball for me is close to the bottom, so I have no confidence in that. But I do have confidence in Kentucky because they look really good in this game. And again, I'm not surprised that Ole Miss kept this close and made this a game here. Kentucky's up 14 or so, I guess, with think it was 6 or 7 minutes left, and Ole Miss made it a little interesting after that. But still a team, even with all the injuries, they're going to battle, and that's just kind of a Kermit Davis type team. And but on the flip side, Kentucky's just, man, they're so good.
Yeah. Two things here. This seals the Wednesday game. You'll see Missouri and Ole Miss playing each other. That's now official. I guess it was going to happen anyway, though, wasn't it?
You're asking the wrong person.
Well, no. If one of them had won
no
last night,
idea.
then they could have moved up and gotten an 11. But anyway, yeah.
I think
It'll just be the order. Technically, right now, Missouri won the head-to-head, so they're the 12, and Ole Miss is the 13. That could change if one wins and the other doesn't, but that's either way.
One gets to wear their home uniforms, the other gets to wear their road.
Right.
Bring them both. That way,
right.
There you go.
So we have that settled, and we have Georgia settled in the 14. The 11, Texas A&M wins one of its two games, then Vanderbilt's going to be the 11. If A&M loses them both and Vanderbilt beats Ole Miss, then Vanderbilt can slip into the 10. But otherwise, that's getting close to being settled. So the other thing, we don't talk about Ole Miss a lot, but I think Matt Morrell is going to be a name that comes up next year as we put together our preseason All-SEC teams.
Yeah, he'll be near there if he stays there. I'm always hesitant to start looking ahead because I'm like,
true.
I never know.
Coaching changes, transfer portal.
There have, and I'm not. Listen, I'm not. No one start spreading the rumor that these guys say that he's going to transfer. That's not what we're saying. Like I'm talking about like my hesitation always now in college basketball is like, goodness gracious, like it's just so many guys transfer and you just never. But no, I understand your point, and yes, he's a very good player. He's just one of those guys, not to the level of a Dario Quindo, but he's like one of those guys who has had a pretty good season when he's been on the floor and just probably isn't going to get enough credit for that just because his team has not been very good. So. But a very talented player. There's no question about it. Remember, he's only a sophomore too, so he's got a couple years to continue to improve his game, and I think I'm with you. If he's there, then he'll be one of those guys to keep your eye on.
Okay, if Tennessee winning Saturday was the stake day, was Georgia the after dinner mint last night?
Yeah, listen, this game was a little interesting for a while.
You were calling that as the hidden upset special. We even texted and talked about that off podcast. You were almost convinced Georgia was going to pull something crazy just because it tends to happen in this league at times.
Well, and they had the winning streak against Tennessee in that setting, and so I wondered, and with the way the game started, I was like, oh man, like this feels like one of those just kind of Tennessee games where if they don't pick it up here offensively, you don't want to let Georgia hang around because they have nothing to lose. And ultimately Tennessee figured it out. And that's what for good teams, that's what you want. And it did, get a little interesting down the stretch there. I think I said it was like, this is becoming one of those like, just get out of their games. Like, just figure out a way to win and just get out of there because, it got, what was it? It got down to, what was it? I think that Georgia cut it to 6 with a minute left. They'd cut it closer to that. I think 4, like 6 minutes left. And so you're thinking, oh boy, like, don't do it, Tennessee. Don't do it. Like this magical Saturday that we're all trying to see if it's going to set up that way. If they lose to Georgia, Arkansas, Auburn, Kentucky fans going to have a field day with that. But Tennessee figured it out and give Josiah Jordan-James. I want to say, like, we're not the only ones that have said this, but
he's been a different player the last month.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say, we said, like, if they're going to make that sort of turn to be the team we think they can be, it's kind of about his ability to be a consistent scorer for them, but not just a scorer. Like, remember, we talked about this too. He does a lot of different things. A good rebounder. I think he's a pretty good passer. I know, like, you can look beyond the assists stuff for that, but I think he sees the floor pretty well. And yeah, I mean, this was a can't lose game for Tennessee, right? Like, it's going to be a grind. I thought that going in. I just, like I said, as bad as Georgia is, you just felt like this could be a game that Tennessee is just trying to will their way through to just get out of there and get to this huge game on Saturday. But yeah, I mean, Josiah Jordan-James, he was really good in this one, and that's what I think Tennessee has to have because remember, we keep saying it, like when all these guards are playing well, and Chandler scores 16, Vescovy scores 11, John Fulkerson had a pretty good game with 12. The Ziegler stuff, and I do want to mention, I don't think I had no idea, and we all saw it on Twitter, and they mentioned on the SEC network broadcast about his family losing everything they had in the house
Oh,
fire. And the mom I think is traveling with the team right now, and so one of those things, and I'm sure there's stuff out there. If anyone has the link, throw that in the comments.
yeah,
I don't know if you can put a link
please.
in the comments, but it's out there. We can find it,
That's
put it in there.
awful.
But they're doing some stuff on that. So I mean, don't even factor in him only having 2 points. No one should read into that in that kind of scenario. But I just think with Tennessee, one of those things where if Josiah Jordan-James is scoring at this kind of rate, they're going to have a chance to be in a position to beat a lot of teams because you just expect Chandler and Vescovy and Ziegler and those guys to contribute something on a night in and night out basis. So yeah, this was by no means I think an impressive win for Tennessee just because it is one of those where you really are just trying to get out and get back home because this was just a game that does nothing for you, but they won it and that's all that matters. And now if you're Tennessee, when you look at their schedule, I think someone pointed this out last night. Tennessee has, even if they lose to Arkansas, Tennessee will have went through the entire season without a single bad loss on their resume, and I think that to me can be very impressive because it's not just that they're going to wind up with no bad losses, but they will have also, wind up with 3 wins against top 2 seeds in Arizona, Kentucky, and Auburn. So I think that's something too. That we said it with the bracketology. I think Tennessee's resume
It's
it kind
really
of sneaks up
solid.
on you a little bit.
Like
Yeah, it's really good.
they're a floor of a 3 seed right now. I mean, they could get knocked down to a 4,
Yeah,
but like you look at the resume, like the only thing that you can really hold against them is they were 5-5 on the road. Well, now they're 6-5. They're 1-2 neutral, but look who they played. I mean, you
right.
look at teams that just don't have a. There are not many teams that have fewer flaws on their resume, and I'm even talking teams ahead of them than Tennessee because they don't
Yeah,
have a loss outside quad one.
yeah. I was saying that's last by winning that game last night, you avoid that. To where Villanova, Texas Tech, Alabama, LSU, Kentucky, Texas, Arkansas, and even if you lose to Arkansas again, that does nothing to you. That's not a bad loss. So
Who's their
it's
worst loss this year? I mean, is it at LSU?
it's got to be LSU.
And,
Yeah,
and
I
that's
think
and
just
that's
by
on the
default.
road. That's
And
how
LSU's a
good
top
their
six
schedule's
seed.
been. Right.
So yeah, I mean, so yeah, it's no, that's what I said. I think Tennessee's kind of a sneaky one that I know, they've beaten. I don't want to say this in the wrong way, but like I think they've had their schedule is set up in a good way. Like their SEC part of the schedule is really set up nicely in terms of if you actually look at it, like they've avoided those scenarios where you're like playing teams back to back, like just they played Kentucky and Arkansas back to back. But really beyond that, it's kind of one of those where you play one of the better teams, then you get kind of you go back down. So the schedule has flowed really well, and I think that's always important. Um, or you could be Arkansas, where it's like there's no flow to the schedule, and you
No.
just play all the bottom tier teams early, and then play all the good teams at the end. But hey, it's worked out for Arkansas. So, but yeah, I think Tennessee at 22-7, maybe that doesn't jump out to people just from a record standpoint, but if you dive deep into their resume, it's actually pretty outstanding.
I'm going to take an Arkansas detour here. Now that you
Oh
brought
boy.
it up, that schedule. Think about that now, because they weren't the team they were 2 months ago. I mean, we even I think had the discussion at one point. Does this team even make the NCAA tournament? Now that seems silly now, but that was the reality.
Well, they were not in the tournament at that
No,
point.
they
Yeah, they were
weren't.
not even close.
I mean, and I know that sounds silly to people, but that's where they were. There was some talk of some chemistry issues, all that stuff. But if that schedule is arranged differently and they're playing the tough teams then, does that team, I'm not going to say that they would have been dead and buried. We just don't know. But it's an interesting question to ask, because that schedule ended up playing out perfectly for them, because it allowed them to work out whatever their issues were. Really their get-right game was that beatdown that they put on Missouri, where I think they doubled up on Missouri. And from that point on, it was a different team. I don't know that you do that if you're going to Rupp Arena, right?
Let's be honest. Even as of January the 26th, Arkansas was 15-5, 5-3 in the SEC. Like they were not a surefire SEC or an NCAA tournament team at that point, because if you look at their resume, at that point their best win would have been LSU, and then what? They would have beaten Missouri, South Carolina, A&M, and Ole Miss. And if you look outside the non-conference schedule, there were not a lot of jumping around for joy type wins on there. So it's been like, we talk about this streak has kind of started a month and a half, but like in the past month, they have went up that ladder so high, just based on all of these wins. But yeah, it's crazy to think, but that's why they are where they are, and we'll see if they can keep that going against LSU, which kind of jump-started their season in the first place with that win in Baton Rouge on January 15th. We'll see if that can continue on Wednesday.
Yeah, Arkansas did not have a single win, or I'm sorry, first win over a team that's going to the NCAA tournament, as you said, was the 15th, but didn't have a second until February the 8th. And really, again, obviously they're a good team. Obviously they're very deserving of a good seed, I think probably a 4 at this point. But you don't get those things until you start winning big games, and it's just been an odd year for them in that regard. But it's been fun to watch. So,
yep.
Okay, we got one left. That was Missouri at South Carolina. For South Carolina, hey, 9 wins now. So Frank Martin finishes at least 500 in the league, and they've got what? They go to Auburn, so that's probably not going to end well. But team's been playing pretty well for about a month, 6 weeks now, Blake.
Yeah.
You're not very excited.
Well, you didn't watch the game last night, so I think that's my challenge to you.
But
I'd
they
go back
won.
And watch this
but they won.
Let me know what you think about it.
Okay.
No, this was just like, look, this was the South Carolina Missouri game. You know what I mean? Like and that's not a knock on it. It's just the style. Missouri.
If you want to pick an ugly game, like those are two teams that are on the short list to start with, right?
Well, it's just for Missouri. We've said it a lot this season, but it's just, man, if they just had any semblance of a perimeter threat, it's just, look how many close games they played this year, right? And we've talked about that. And if they just had anything from outside, I mean, realize how many times have we probably said this over the year? I'm going to go through this real quickly. In their last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. In their last 12 SEC games, they have hit over 5 3-pointers only once.
Ooh.
I mean, that is, I have to believe that is rare in this era for a team to not be able to hit outside shot more than 5. Now, look, we've seen some teams go over, but I mean, even before that, they had 11 against Alabama, and then let's keep going here. 4 against Ole Miss, 4 against A&M, 2 against Arkansas, 5 against Kentucky. They had 9 against Alabama. But it's just...
Wait, did you say they had 9 against Alabama and 11 against Alabama?
No, they had no, that's right. They had 9 the first time, 11 the second time. Yeah.
So Alabama's the only team they hit 3s against.
Basically. Because that's a very good point. Those are the only games this year they've hit double digits, hit 9 or more. Well, hold on. They had 2, Central Michigan and SMU. But my point is...
let me stop you there for a minute. You know what we need? We need Alabama to get that 5 seed and Missouri to beat Ole Miss.
Well,
set up the third time of these two.
I don't think Alabama fans want that, because even that second win was not convincing by any means. But no, that's my point here is... that just removes an element that makes it so hard. And they still had a chance here, right? I mean, this is one that it winds up being a 4-point game. I mean, South Carolina was up 14 or 15, I think, in the second half at one point. But it's just that removes an element that would make things so much easier, if you're Missouri, and to be able to win games like this. If you just had somebody that could go out and hit three threes, and have just someone that, just at any time can just knock down those threes consistently. But as a team, they haven't had that. And I think that just makes it so hard, especially, for South Carolina, we keep saying guys like Kuznard, he scored 17 in this one. I thought he played really well in this game. I mean, like I said, at times this was not a pretty game, but I thought he played pretty well. Even someone like Devin Carter has kind of he's been up and down, but he's still someone that I think, they're obviously much better when he plays well, I think. So yeah, I think Carolina's the type of team that, depending on their draw in the SEC tournament, I mean, let's be honest. Like, this is a team that's now won what, 5 of 6. I think that's right. Yeah, their loss is at
That's what
Alabama,
I'm
but
saying. They've been winning a lot of games lately, and it's a weird team because like we talked about Cousinard and Bryant being their best players coming in. Sometimes it's been Devin Carter, like you said. Wildens Levesque was really good the first half of the season for them. He's kind of fallen off, although he's playing a good bit of minutes. Eric Stevenson jumps up and has 17, 20 points one night. James Reese has led them in scoring a few times. I mean, for a team that's kind of out there in the weeds and not talked about a lot, I don't know that there's a team in the league that's got more guys that could just like lead them in scoring. Kentucky would be the team that like has the most guys that could lead you in scoring probably any given night. But I think South Carolina is probably second.
yeah, and I mean they're another team, like, they don't have any bad losses in SEC play. Of their 8 losses, none of them are bad. I mean, even the ones to Florida, Mississippi State, they're not bad. South Carolina's schedule, they just happen to draw Auburn twice this year, Tennessee twice. You get Kentucky, but it's just, yeah, I think that hasn't helped certainly. But they're a team that I will be intrigued by, depending on the bracket. It's who do you play, and I think that's where. But look, I'm also going to say this, and people may think I'm crazy, but I'm also not going to count them out of this game on Saturday against Auburn, because I just think, you know it's a Frank Martin team, man. That's what it comes down to. Like, should Auburn win that game by double digits? Yes. And will they? Probably. But it's like, it's still a Frank Martin team, and I just think the way they play, you never know. But yeah, I mean, they're playing as well as they have all season right now, and that's a good place to be in heading into the SEC tournament.
I was trying to do some revisionist history. What would it look like for South Carolina? 'Cause there's the one that I always think about, just getting the doors blown off at Coastal Carolina. That was December 1st. Bad loss to Princeton, second game of the year. I mean, not awful, but 112 in Ken Palm. Should have won that game. Give them wins there, and I know this is a big. Then all of a sudden they're 20-9. I don't think they're in the NCAA tournament. I don't know what the net is. I haven't looked that up in a while. I think it's probably in the 80s, although that would change. You know what? You give them those. That's a team that goes to the SEC tournament. Well, they don't have big wins. They beat LSU at home, and that's really it. But that's one of those things, like if you if that's the scenario and they're 20-9, say 20-10, they lose to Auburn, but then you go to the tournament with a chance to, bag a win or two against some tournament teams, and maybe it's different. But unfortunately, I think that's where it all sunk.
Well, and look, they've still got a chance, like you said, to be the 5 seed in the league. I mean, that's something to think about in and of itself. Like, and that's unfortunate for South Carolina, right? Because we've seen this before. What was it? Several years ago, they finished 4th or 5th, maybe, and yet they still didn't get in the tournament.
Yeah.
But
like no team in this league puts up like 8 to 10 win seasons with nothing to show for it like Carolina.
Yeah, that's unfortunately the truth. I think that's accurate. They've been left out, I think, a couple times now, maybe since Frank Martin's been there, where they've had a decent record. So, yeah. So we'll see. Big game on Saturday. Hey, if they win that one, then we maybe change our tune a little bit going into the SEC tournament. But they're still a team I would not love to play, and maybe they're one that, if you're Florida or someone like that, I'd want to avoid, perhaps.
Well, we've already dropped our Wednesday night previews, to check that out on our YouTube channel. We did bracketology yesterday, which I think people really liked. We'll do another one Friday, and when we do it, we'll have it updated through Thursday's games. Anything we missed here, Blake?
Well, I will say, and we will put out a short video on this whenever we make the official decision, but we are going to have some pretty fun stuff going
Yeah.
on during the SEC tournament and for Selection Sunday. So we will probably save that for a separate, 5-minute video. We'll just kind of put that out once we make a decision on that instead of cramming it into one of these, so no one misses it. But we will have some pretty cool stuff going on during the SEC tournament and then specifically on Selection Sunday. So we'll let you guys know about that, but that should be fun, and maybe we'll get one of these mailbags here too pretty soon, because I think that would be pretty interesting. Maybe we do that after Saturday, and we do one of those heading into the SEC tournament, because I know there's some fun questions we'll have on the tournament, I'm sure, and all that, and you can also ask us life questions if you would like as well.
Life questions? What kind of life questions are we prepared to answer?
You never know. Maybe there are people out there saying, you know what, there's something I want to ask these guys that has nothing to do with South Carolina's NCAA tournament resume, and I appreciate that.
So what's your email?
The email, you can send it on the community tab. Otherwise, we get the spam email and people saying we've won the lottery and all this stuff. I got an email yesterday, someone telling me that I had won the lottery and all I had to do was send in my bank account information, and I could. Why would I be doing this with you right now? If I had won the lottery, if I would have just sent in my bank account information, I could be a millionaire right now. I don't know what I was thinking, but that's why I love SEC. I love it more than $1 million in the lottery. There you go.
Well, you know what? Let's first of all, I got some life questions for Rob Manfred right now, but that's a different conversation.
Good luck.
I wore the Braves shirt yesterday to bring some good karma to the negotiations. That did not happen. That did not help. But seriously, if you won the lottery, we would be doing something. We got big plans for this company. We just got off the ground. Speaking of anniversaries, we celebrated our 1 year not very long ago. And I mean, we want to do some fun. We will be the kings of fun. We just need some sponsors. We will be. There will be no place that might be a T-shirt. We can print them up and sell them.
Kings of fun. Oh God.
I've said this. I want to do SEC fantasy football and baseball. I want us to be doing that one day.
There will be some takers watching this video, probably. So
we need partners. Like anything else, you need backing.
Hold on a second. You leaving basketball out? What is
no,
this?
I said SEC.
Basketball?
I said SEC fantasy basketball and baseball.
No, you said baseball and football.
Oh, well, we'll do
it's
that
all right,
too.
Chris. We get it, man. We get it. It's all right, everyone. We understand.
Oh, now look what you're doing to me.
No, that is.
We want to do fantasy baseball, basketball, and football around the SEC. That's a lot of stuff to bite off. But that was like before we formed the company and even launched. It was something you and I talked about. We want T-shirts,
a lot of cool stuff. Yeah,
merchandise. We got a lot of things, but we need partners. And one thing you can do to help us is, if you're watching, hit the subscribe button, tell some friends. We grow our audience. That impacts what we can do.
Guys, we're almost to 1,000 subscribers. How nuts is that?
We want to be 1,000 subscribers before tip-off this weekend. I'm just going to call my shot. I think the people out there will help us get there.
We'll see. Yeah, it's it's fun, and be sure to follow us on Twitter at 14 Southeastern. Just flip it from Southeastern 14 to at 14 Southeastern, because we got a lot of stuff on there too, and we'll probably experiment with some of the Twitter Spaces, which everyone knows about by now. We may try to do that outside of our videos too. Like I said, we'll have more live streams here on YouTube and all this stuff. We got a plan. We just got to figure out days and times and all that good stuff. But yeah, so be sure to follow us on Twitter too.
Do you have any life's advice for us today?
Well, I was thinking about it, and I don't. I have nothing for you guys. So good luck on your journey, because I have nothing to give you right now. So
He who barks goes outside. That's how my morning's
well, that's a
gone.
good one. We'll save that for the mailbag.
Right.
But I got a lot of things to say
Blake's
about
life
that. So
advice.
we'll see. Yeah, we'll see what we get out of that. So
All right. I think we've rambled enough. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you soon.